Okay, greetings everybody. I was going to do this out on my deck so that you could see how beautiful it is during dry season, but we have too much to discuss. It's too serious. It's going to take longer than my laptop battery has a charge. I know that YouTube is probably going to hit this one with a demonetization, but I don't really care. We have some things that are pretty serious have been alleged. And there's a whole lot of stuff to completely debunk that is certain creators without a box of Kleenexes saying, hey, Sue, I'm just going to jump right into what was sent to me just a little while ago because, hey, Bliss, because I'm still kind of freaked out about it. Let me read it to you. It's what I posted earlier. More of your appearance commentary. KJ has gone off the rails. Jamie, yes and no. She's making an allegation. I took tons of notes here about Anna and Covenant Eyes. And I'm wondering if she's believing this comment. There was a comment that was sent to me earlier. Hey, Kira. Hey, Ashley. That just kind of blows my mind. Okay. Because if it's true, it makes it just makes the whole Duggar thing just so much worse. And I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just going to say it could be just somebody running their mouth, and we certainly have seen that in the community. The comment said, ask him about the time, talking about Jim Bob, he had John David fly one of Josh's kids to a family friend in Texas at 1 a.m. through a storm rather than go to the local ER and get a visit from Child Protective Services. Summer of 2015. Hey, T King. Hey, Christine. Hey, Word Puzzler Specialist. Hey, Kira and Ashley again. CJ. If that is true, that is a huge, 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 huge thing. And I think that might be what Katie Joy was talking about in her comment about Covenant Eyes and Anna. She said something about Anna knowing all about the abuse through Covenant Eyes, and that because she signed off on the abuse, that she herself is culpable. If that comment has even the slightest bit of truth to it, not only would she be culpable, but so would Jim Bob, John David, anybody in the family that participated with this, Anna, all of them. They would be, So who knows? Who knows? But here's what KJ said about Covenant Eyes that I just took exception with. She said that Anna was getting all these reports from Covenant Eyes about Josh accessing the stuff. What's your unpopular opinion, CJ? I have to hear this before I go on. Good morning, Gingerly. Are you saying that Anna knew and covered up? I mean, that's always possible. And the reason I say that it is possible is because, going back to something I'm going to talk about in a bit, hey, Nitwit, in the IBLP, the woman is not allowed to oink on the man, is not allowed to have an opinion. It would be easily believable for me that if Anna saw what's going on, she would not take any steps. Hey, Amy. How does she know what the report showed? I don't think she knows a thing, but she just knows this one rumor, and that's what she's going on. Anna is trained to believe everything her man tells her, right? Yes, Princess. Absolutely. I'm not going to believe anything till authorities start questioning Anna. I do think more is going to come out. Well, actually, I think so too. And I think at least with Josh's conviction, they can now start doing that. They can actually get a court injunction to question the children now. If this stuff is going on, a good child psychologist may pull this out. But then again, we're talking about the IBLP, which is extreme, almost brainwashing techniques of children and women. Hey, Prairie, that this may well be one of those times when it's going to be really hard to pull the truth out of everybody. I think they should talk to John David to see if this is actually true, because this is pretty outrageous. So KJ said that Covenant Eyes showed Anna that he was looking at this stuff and he was accessing the dark web. I actually have a little tiny bit of familiarity with Covenant Eyes because at our old church, everybody pushed it, particularly the guys with the prawn problems. I think the cracks, oh, come on. I hate it when one thing pops up over another. I think the cracks are opening up to the whole Duggar family and they can't hide the facts anymore. Yes. And I think they will do a forensic interview with the kids now. A mama should put her baby's safety before any man. I absolutely agree. And the poor woman is brainwashed. I pray he didn't do anything to the children. I pray, and I pray if he did, they didn't know, because it would be just sick if he did and they were in on it. Ray, absolutely. Absolutely. KJ needs to bring receipts for her claims, in my humble opinion. Yes. I was late. What did I miss? What is pretty outrageous? Nitwit, it is a rumor that somebody posted saying that in summer of 2015, John David took a plane with one of Josh's children who was injured to Texas so that a friend of Jim Bob's could take the child to the ER for their injuries so that they would not be questioned by CPS in Arkansas. My bio mom turned a blind eye, so maybe I'm biased in my lack of empathy for Anna. CJ, I'm not sure on that. I think now that if that, like I said, if there's any truth to that, then yes, she probably did turn a blind eye. So that's one thing that's good, is that they'll be able to get a forensic examination of children now. They should be able to. They can go to court and make that happen. And if that happened, the children will be given help. They'll be taken out of that household. I do think more people are going to come out of the woodworks. It all needs to be vetted so some creators don't run with it and continue to spread misinformation. Jamie, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I'm saying this is a big rumor, not true, because who knows? So back to without a box of Kleenexes, claims on Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes is not a perfect piece of software. I'm just going to come right out and say that. It does not show partitions or Linux downloads or the Tor browser on the dark web. It doesn't show what is downloaded from the dark web. One of the problems with it is it assumes that you're going to be just accessing your lovely, lovely prawn using Chrome, or does anybody use Internet Explorer anymore, or Firefox, or some other thing? It's not going to assume that. It's not going to see the Linux partition. I don't care what KJ is saying about that. I do not think that Anna had any idea and received any kind of anything from Covenant Eyes that told her husband was doing that. Why didn't CPS step in when they refused to let them talk to the kids? Because they couldn't legally do it, Sue. Homeschool legal defense people tell you, if you're part of the IBLP, to never allow them into your home, never allow them to talk to your children, make them get a court order. To get a court order, they have to have probable cause. Josh being convicted of CP is probable cause enough now. So now they will get it. I'm sure they'll get interviewed. Oh my God, I just thought of something. I bet if somebody asked KJ about this rumor, she'd be reporting this fact within 24 hours. Yes, Nitwit. And I expect to see her reporting on this tonight. You know how she is. Wonder if Tyler will be removed from the 10 mansion. I hope that kid is safe. Yeah, I hope so too. I certainly hope so, Prairie, because that kind of concerns me too. So there's no way. Covenant Eyes is not perfect. It is just a software that assumes that you're looking at things with normal browsers. It doesn't assume you got Tor downloaded and you're looking at the dark web. I could be wrong about that, but from what I remember from Covenant Eyes from the years that everybody at our church was promoting it, it doesn't look it's super sneaky. I mean, anybody, and I could be grateful Josh is in prison for all we know. She absolutely could be. And this, like I said, the covenant eyes, we don't know what she's seen, what he's excused, any of that. And Jamie, it's perfectly possible that Anna could be extremely sad over what's happened and Josh is removed from her life, very sad about that, and feel relieved and a weight off her shoulders at the same time. It's perfectly logical that she would have 2 or 3 different feelings about this. I know that I've seen that happen before at some of our old church. Some of the times that things have happened and people say, I'm really sad, but at least blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now I have to debunk a lot of what Without a Box of Kleenex has been saying in the wake of this. She was going on and on and on about how the kids see their father as anointed by God to lead and to be a prophet. Now, I would dispute the prophet thing, but I know the IBLP and in many of the fundamentalist kind of evangelical groups I've been part of, that these guys always think that they've been anointed, that they bring some kind of special God thing, and they don't even listen to pastors. They're supposed to be under the authority of pastors, but with the IBLP umbrella, you got God, you've got husband, man, you've got wife, you've got children. So most of these guys, including Jim Bob, believes they're only answerable to God and that they're doing God's work here and they're anointed by God to do this stuff. What he's manipulated, what he's controlled, what he's gaslit, what he's threatened, we don't fully know. Absolutely, Kay does need to zip it up because she's making it harder for the victims. She's doing the victims real harm by talking about this in the way she is. Grief is tricky and she may feel more than one way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you know if Anna has family that will help her? CJ, yes. She has one brother that tried to get her to leave Josh the first time all of this nonsense came out. And when Ashley Madison reveal happened, he tried again. I suspect he'll probably try again because this is certainly a reason. And it's going to take her a while to get to where she is actually it is actually going to take her a while to get to the point where she can even consider it. Right now, she's just in shock. There's no way. She's going to take a lot of support. So back to Without a Crystal Ball, she's also said quite a few times that the Latter-day Saints spawned fundamentalism. That is absolutely not true. The Latter-day Saints have only spawned fundamentalist Latter-day Saints. The fundamentalist crowd, the Christian fundamentalist evangelical crowd, was spawned directly from the Methodists, from the Baptist, from the Congregationalists, from Lutheranism, from mainstream Protestantism is what spawned this, not the LDS. I saw that she said that Gil Bates founded the IBLP. I want to go ahead and shoot that one down too. The IBLP in its first configuration, it wasn't called that, it was called something else at the time. It started in 1959 by Bill Gothard, who we talk about a lot. We're talking about these things. In 1961, the organization was incorporated and they elected their first board of directors. Gil Bates was not even born until 1965, 4 years after they incorporated and 6 years after it started. Gil sits on the board of directors. He currently does. I had to double check that last night. He does sit on the board of directors. So she's demanding that the board of directors make a statement. The board of directors doesn't need to make a statement about this. They're not directly linked to this, except that Jim Bob has used their theology. That is just the only thing. And she's also talking about jury tampering going on by Jim Bob Duggar. There is no proof of that. None whatsoever. I don't like Jim Bob Duggar either, but guess what? I'm not going to accuse him of jury tampering until there's actually evidence that he tampered with the jury. Her sources are wine box. That's exactly what I think is going on here. LDS first vision was said to have been confirmed in 1820. LDS didn't become a thing until some years later. Yes. IBLP was the brainchild of Bill Gothard, who was his own level of toxic guy. I would love to say thank you to the jurors that convicted Josh. Righting a wrong that took a long time. This was more about rich, white, famous evangelical privilege than it was anything else, and power, the power behind that. So for many victims, it was very satisfying to see that. For many people who've been victimized as children, for a lot of people that I know and I talked to over this, they were telling me that they were just crushed. I talked over the past 2 or 3 days. I have talked to more people who are just upset that have had their PTSD has just been re-triggered. And I understand that. I understand that fully. It's hard when you're trying to recover from this nonsense. It just is. And you're going to be triggered. You're going to be pulled back. There's going to be something, maybe it could be as simple as walking into a place and they're playing the same kind of worship music. It can be as simple as having someone say, bless you, when you're not expecting it. It's always when you're not expecting it, it just jumps out and gets with you. CJ, I don't think there is an actual name for what my faith is. Okay. I came out of one of these churches. It was very similar to the Duggars. Some of the people that I went to church with followed the Gothard way. We left, and I had no intention of leaving. I was a 5%er. I was doing everything in the church, right down to serving on worship team, to leading home group, to all kinds of things. And when my husband left, I wasn't going to leave. I was run out, basically. And, well, I was run out because I didn't stop my husband from leaving. So everybody got super nasty and I left. And I didn't want to leave, but I had to. I knew I had to. I went to the Methodist church of my husband for 10 years. And I'm not a Methodist. I'm going to come out and say that. But I do like that they say open hands, open hearts. I mean, that's important, I think, to be open to various people. I'm going to say that what I am is, I believe in Jesus. I believe in the words of Jesus, his ministry, and the stuff he did. But I don't believe anything that the standard evangelical church is pushing these days. I don't believe in this whole thing like the Duggars and the IBLP believe, that they're superior, better people to everyone, even other Christians. I don't believe that at all. I believe in following the words of Jesus. That's what I believe. So right now, I'm really not going to church. I go to church occasionally with my husband, but I'm not going to claim any sort of denominational affiliation whatsoever. Quite frankly, I've thought about starting a church and not calling it a church, calling it something like the living room, to be a place where people can gather, where they can heal from the things they've been through, where groups like AA or whatever can come together. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Okay, the other thing that Without a Crystal Ball said is that Jim Bob is running a CULT, and that many people have moved to Arkansas to sit under his leadership. I don't think that we can go that far. I think that Jim Bob is pushing standard IBLP theology, and there are people moving to that area that are like-minded, that want to bask in his star power. Spicy pizza, I know not every evangelical does. Let me say that. Not every evangelical, not every Christian, but not everyone. She's off her rocker. Do it online, and I have to. Some churches is prosperity gospel. I don't like it either. It's a scam. It is most definitely a scam. I agree with you there. He free ain't so bad. I honestly wish KJ's internet would go out. We need a break from her dangerous and chronic lies, speculations, insinuations, and accusations. I'm not being hyperbolic. She is dangerous. Yes, Rose, I believe that. Bliss, that sounds pretty awesome. Open church sounds like a pretty awesome thing. I think the people moving to Arkansas are clout chasers. Yes, they are. They are. Okay, so she's accused of running a cult. I do have to go with some stuff about the ILP today that she has missed or misinterpreted. You know, that women that are abused, women and children are abused in this fashion that we're talking about. They have to ask the person that did this to for forgiveness. To me, that's one of the sickest. Oh, thank you, Rose. My yarn fun thanks you so much. They have to forgive the person. Ask his forgiveness or her forgiveness. Give up all hurt and bitterness and never mention it again. Smile and go on. You know, I think that these types of fundamentalism, they got it all wrong about bitterness. There are just sometimes in life that you're just going to be what they call bitter. But I don't consider that to be a sin. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be even bitter for a season. There are some good things that have come out of the ashes of bitterness and anger. When you're angry, it's a powerful thing, and you're seizing upon something. And there have been a lot of movements that have come out of anger, out of bitterness, have changed things for the better for people. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to say, I am bitter, I am hurt, I am angry right now. Oh, thank you, Ruth. My yarn fun thanks you. Cindy Kunzman has been talking to me for days about the Midrash, where they're taking some of this theology from. Some of the theology in the IBLP does not even come out of the Bible. It comes out of something entirely different. The Midrash theory is of strange women. Oh my goodness, thank you, Pearl Spell Check. I'm going to buy a pile yarn with that. They have this thing they call strange women. And if something like that happens to you, if you're molested, you're considered strange women at that point, even if you're a 6-month-old baby. And it's not biblical at all. Not at all. It is a catalyst to healing. I believe that anger and bitterness are a catalyst to healing. And I think the church considers it such a threat, certain churches, because when you get in that state, you're doing your independent thinking. You're thinking about all the stuff they pushed on you and thinking, this is right, this is wrong, this is whatever. But hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Yes, I meant to say that at the beginning, but I forget that. Also, don't send hate in anybody I talk to here. Not the Duggars, not KJ, not none of that. No hate, no harassment, please. So they think they're higher, better people, except for these strange women who have been molested. And those girls would be considered strange women, strange women. It's a modern day Molech. They blame Dinah and look at Dinah and say, because Dinah never cried out the right way, Dinah was sinning and Dinah wanted it to happen. They're saying it's an R theology, R-A-P-E theology that comes out of the Midrash of Rashi by old rabbinical writings by Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. I probably mangled that, but I don't care. This is too important to talk about. And they talk about the victims defrauding the predator. That's just not a thing. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen them say. It just does not fit it at all. They try to blame you for everything. And it's kind of funny because while I was writing this up this morning and I was thinking about all of this, they don't follow the Bible. They're adding to the Bible. And you know what it says about adding to the Bible or taking away any words? It's a sin. And you really have to be careful of these things. I was listening earlier. My husband goes to a Friday morning Bible study online at the church he's going to. And I listen. Sometimes I listen and I'm like, what the hell? I've got times I listen, I go, oh, that's not right. And then there's times, yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. This morning, they were saying some crap that I just sat and thought about it for a while. And I wish I had time to write up all my thoughts on it, but I'm going to explain it. They were talking about kind of like about a rebellion and unbelief and stuff, being like the Titanic. They were talking about people too stubborn to go to the back of the boat and get on the lifeboats at the Titanic as an analogy. And I was sitting there thinking, that is a very poor analogy. I've read a fairly amount of books on what happened with the Titanic, and including some survivor accounts. First of all, they weren't very many lifeboats. They weren't near enough. So to say somebody who's unbelieving and rebellious is like somebody that won't go to the back of the boat and get on a lifeboat, it doesn't even begin to measure up, because of the fact that they were only this handful of lifeboats for this huge boat with 3,000 passengers. Now, the lifeboats were huge. They would hold like between 40 and 60 people each. But there was such chaos and classism at play when they loaded and lowered the boats, they weren't even remotely full. So if you were in third class and you were locked in downstairs, which did happen, you didn't stand a chance, no matter how rebellious you were, no matter how much you love the Lord, no matter, you were completely cut out. That, that kind of theology assumes that everything is a level playing field, that there's no classism involved, that everybody has plenty to eat, lots of money, and that everybody has the same opportunities available to them. And we all know that that is just not true. That's not how the world works. Just like those with the least money and the least abilities were locked under the boat and had no chance to get to the lifeboat, there are a lot of people that are locked into these theologies and have no way of accessing anything better. When the Duggars first came into our national consciousness, and this happened to be right when I was falling out with my church, towards the end of my time with them, and I was watching the first Duggar specials and thinking, boy, that is legalism, and they're following Michael Pearl, and they're following the IBLP, and that's just wrong. I'm a sinner saved by grace. Yes. So anyway, because the playing field's not long, when the Duggars first hit our national consciousness, and the Bates, the Duggars were living in a 3-bedroom, small rental house that had been condemned. They didn't have a pot to pee in, the window to throw out of, none of that. They were living hand to mouth in some ways. They were doing better, though, than the Bates, because the Bates were living a huge amount of them in a tiny little mobile home that there were all sorts of things wrong with. And they're all bragging about how they don't have debt. Well, you know something? Not having debt for a home that leads you to be living with your children and the kind of housing you wouldn't put an animal in is not living, as far as I'm concerned. That's existing. Once TV took a shine to the Duggars and they had a normal amount of money coming in, that's when things changed for them. And the same with the Bates, because I remember early years of the Duggar show when they went to rebuild the Bates mobile home. And so I don't get that. I get trying to be out of debt, but I don't get taking it to that extreme. But so many people I knew in my old Quiverful church live like that. I know one person that lived in a mobile home that one of the walls was missing and they just put plywood up. They're trying to live to this exact standard where the husbands only work for themselves. They don't go out and work for anybody else, because that would be a sin to be under another man's control. And so many times I saw this extreme poverty because they're trying to live up to an 18th century ideal that no longer works. Has moved on past all of that. Now, online work has helped a lot of them, but it's just been really, I know some that there's just no way. They're on welfare, a lot of them that I've known, qualified for food stamps. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you have to be willing. Misogynistic, patriarchal BS. There's a lot of that. You have to be willing to live in this world as it is. The world changes and moves and evolves all the time. I was just thinking about that earlier because I was looking at the television shows that have been canceled and thinking, I don't know what any of those things are. I haven't watched any of them. And it's okay if the world moves on. It's okay if you fall out of favor. You don't understand why the world is moving on beyond you. But at the same time, you have to have at least very basic everything for your family. I mean, even if you have to work 3 jobs. I've worked crazy jobs. I've talked about that many a time because at college, I see why people back in the day had a bunch of kids to work on the farm. Connie, that's exactly right. And so it's actually kind of irresponsible to have a huge family if you don't have the resources to support them. And I do know farm families that have had huge amounts of kids and they use them on the farm. I mean, that's a reality, used to be. My own family, my grandfather on my mother's side, there were a ton of children. And that's what they did with the tons of children. It was like go on the farm and work. That agrarian ideal is pretty rare these days. And there's so much of farming that has become completely automated. It has moved so far past, it's kind of like us trying to understand what the Titanic was like. I mean, we can read about it, we can see pictures, we can watch movies, but it's something so far in the distance now, more than 100 years now, that it's going to be hard for anybody to understand what that really was like. I see why people back in the day, yeah, I'm sorry, I've already read that. That's how my dad's family was. Connie, yeah, that's how a lot of on my mother's side, that's how the families were, not on my father's side. But yeah, on my father's side, it's kind of interesting. My grandfather, my great grandfather, my father's side was an Irish immigrant. There were a ton of those on the Titanic. And his wife was a German immigrant. So they hadn't even been here that long. We have implements and machinery now. That's exactly what's going on. So everything's changed, but they refuse to change and they won't change their vision. They limit themselves. I will say this for Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship. Well, I used to go there for their conferences all the time. They believe you keep up with the times, but they also believe that Christians and evangelical Christians are going to be high place takers. They talked about that quite a bit. I remember specifically Duncan Smith giving a sermon on this once and listening to him talking about Christians overtaking the entertainment industry in Hollywood, becoming screenwriters, becoming presidents. He had a high vision for that. And I don't say that that's actually wrong to have a vision for that. But if you impoverish yourself and try to pretend it's the 1800s, trying to make that happen, it is never going to happen. It's going to require education. It's going to require keeping up with the technology, and everything moves so fast in technology these days. My grandfather was a predator. Oh, I am so sorry about that. Why does Josh Duggar go right to jail after sentencing, but Justice Smollett is set free? I think it has to do more with the seriousness of the charges. I think that's what it is. And as Justice Smollett, I haven't kept up with this case. Is he being tried in federal or in state court? There's a big difference there too, where he's being tried, what he's being tried for. That all makes a huge difference. Sorry, but I believe KJ. Anna, we have open arms and acceptance here if you ever realize all the lies that KJ has told. She's told a pile. She's told a pile about me. I trained her at Pathos. And she pretends she doesn't know who I am. She routinely steals my content. She stole my story of me leaving my old fundamentalist quiverful church and tried to make it her own. My old fundamentalist quiverful church and tried to make it her own. One time she said that. And if you don't believe me, go look it up on Recaps with Bobby. He actually did a side-by-side of my story with hers. So no one here knows for sure what's going to happen with Anna and how much she knew. We live in interesting times, my friend, and I think that we're going to see more come out as the time goes on. My grandfather was adopted to work on a farm. Oh, there was a lot of that going on too, Deb. I've read quite a bit. Many do get food stamps, EBT, but then they insult other recipients and call them entitlement programs. It makes me crazy. All societies should have a social safety net. Rose, I absolutely agree with that. And I know so many who've done that, who've received the money and then denounced everybody else receiving it. The evangelicals have turned into the parishes of the Bible. They've turned into the Pharisees, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they know much about Jesus, quite frankly. I don't know, Connie. I saw that reported several times that Anna was staying with Josh at the Reber home. I don't even know where that came from. Somebody was saying that. No sources. You're right. Anna didn't appear to be affected by the evidence that came from reporters. Poor Anna Duggar. She really faces a long road no matter what. If she knew what was going on, that's just heinous. Except that I understand that she's being manipulated, and this whole thing is just doing a mind F with her. I know that from... Thank you, Misty. Thank you so much, my yarn fun. But Anna faces a hard road, regardless of what happens. To get unbrainwashed from what's been going on to her and come to a more normal place and be able to mother her children who are traumatized, I'm sure, by everything that's happened. Even if that rumor was not true, those kids are still missing their father. It has to be a terrible time for all of them. Maybe Josh made her stay and leave the kids. She is abused and a victim. Princess, I believe that too. I believe there's a lot of... I think we never saw Michelle at the trial. I think we didn't see Michelle at the trial because Michelle knew she couldn't emotionally handle what was being said and what was going on. I have heard it said that Michelle is the one that was insistent upon Josh not going to the police with what happened with his sisters, that she's the one that really pushed covering for Josh at every level. And I can kind of understand that as a mother. You want your children to be, you want to excuse your children for everything. There are some of us, though, that live in reality and know that our little children can be little shit sometimes, and that we can't cover for them for everything. That if they don't learn how to face consequences for the behavior, they're going to turn into monsters. And I fully believe that's what has happened here. He was never forced to face any consequences for any actions ever. So he turned into this rather awful person. He turned into a monster. And I think that's why we never saw her there. Anna seems completely shut down and tuned out to me. Oh, thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Yeah, I have nothing but remorse for her right now. And I pray that she was not involved. Anna has disassociated. We don't know her story. Not saying anything right or wrong, just an observation as a survivor myself. Mandy, that is very true. I think she probably did disassociate. We all do that in times of great stress when we're freaking out, when these things happen. I mean, what else can you say? It's very common when you've been abused or you've been in an abusive relationship to disassociate. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. It's a shorter video than usual, but I just had to get on here and vent and rant about this stuff because I know so much talking about with the IBLP was just so wrong. She doesn't know them. She never did much research on them. The research that she has used on them is just so wrong on so many levels. And yes, I did see the video where she said that Gil Bates was the founder of the IBLP, which is absolutely not true. Okay, everybody I hope you all have a great day. Try not to let this affect you too badly. Like I said, I'm spending a lot of times talking to survivors of various things that are just PMing me left and right. And I've had to take some mental health breaks. I'm about to take one. I'm about to get in the pool here. Wasn't the head of the IBLP involved in keeping young girls working in his office? Misty, yes, there are over 40 women that came forward that said that he had been inappropriate with them as teenagers. They tried to sue him for it. They forced him to step down. Yeah. Okay, without a box of Kleenex, what she's done now. Yep, we're going to have to just leave it at that and let without a box of Kleenex deal with whatever. Be well, be happy.